Welcome to your Hope-Filled Perspective with Dr. Michelle Bengtson, and joining me today is my husband, Scott. We began talking last episode about how busy the holiday season gets, how we have expectations that create a dynamic in which we can often lose our peace. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more and giving you some practical suggestions for how you can create a more peaceful holiday season. Colossians 3:15 reminds us to let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Scott, let's start off just by recapping for our listeners, if we could, what we covered last week.
Yes, and we covered quite a bit, and yet there's so much more to talk about. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me back again. Twice in 2 weeks is a new record for me. We talked first about remembering the source of our peace during the holiday season.
Yes.
And really that becomes, we didn't mention it last week, but that is the foundation for everything else that we talk about. If you skip over that, or if you don't get that, then everything else is just kind of working on the surface, covering up in our own human effort the flaws or the problems that we see and that we deal with. So understanding where our peace comes from is just critical, and it's the starting point for everything else.
I mentioned in my book, Breaking Anxiety's Grip, how to reclaim the peace God promises. I mentioned the fact that we cannot have peace apart from God's presence. So we've got to maintain spending time in his presence and remembering that he is the source of our peace if we want any peace at all.
Yes, and that comes out again and again and again and again. When you read through the New Testament, I've been doing this with a group of guys that I get together with, and in Paul's letters and in the letters of some of the other disciples that contributed to the New Testament, they start out, grace and peace to you. And then through the letter, the author, Paul, usually comes back and talks about peace and where it comes from, and then the effect that it has in our lives and in the lives of the church or the people, the other believers around us. So it's a critical concept.
And in fact, when he says that, doesn't he typically say grace and peace to you from our Lord Jesus Christ?
Yes,
because that is the only place we truly get true peace.
Yes, and that phrase for Paul, I haven't looked at all the letters in the New Testament, but every single letter that was specifically attributed to Paul starts with some variation of grace and peace to you from God our Father through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Yes. So that was the first thing that we covered.
And the second thing we talked about was understanding what our expectations are for the holiday season, for gatherings and for relationships, and then looking for ways to reduce some of those expectations, as well as to understand really what the fundamental goal is for the things we do. We mentioned last week, I am getting together for big fancy family meals, which is okay as far as it goes. If it's your tradition, wonderful. And if you enjoy it or you're good at it, wonderful, then keep doing it. But if it's a burden to you, what is it that you're really trying to do?
And whose expectation are you really trying to live up to?
Which you had talked about last week with your experience of inheriting your mother's kind of family matriarchal holiday preparation work.
Yeah. So this week, I want to continue talking, though, about assessing and recognizing and reducing expectations.
Yes.
Because so much worry, fear, and anxiety actually comes from trying to control things that we cannot control. And a big thing that we cannot control is others' outcomes and others' expectations of us. One of the things that I think is important to talk about is the fact that in order to truly understand our expectations or others' expectations of us, sometimes it's going to require sitting the family down
Mm-hmm.
and having an honest discussion.
Mm-hmm.
What's most important to you at the holidays? What would you miss if we didn't do or didn't have?
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, I need you to know time and energy is finite. So what
Yeah.
are your expectations? Because it's really hard to meet others' expectations when you're unaware
Yes.
that they're even
Yes.
there. And what I found was that I didn't even realize I had expectations
Yeah.
of myself
Yeah.
and how other people would respond, whether it was the gift giving or the meal.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many areas where we can let other people down because we don't know their expectations, but that can create a lot of anxiety, feeling like I've got to do everything just right.
Sure. And then you step in it and you don't even realize that you've missed somebody's expectations, and you scratch your head and you wonder, and what do you do then? We try to guess at what the problem was, and we try to shoot blindly to fix it, and we never can.
You know, an example of that is that I always love receiving Christmas cards.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked last time about how much preparation we put into sending out Christmas cards. It was the finding the card, it was taking the perfect
Mm-hmm.
picture, it was getting those photographs copied and printed off, and then writing the Christmas letter, and then addressing the envelopes and mailing them. That was a whole lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion I finally came to is that it wasn't bringing me any joy,
Mm-hmm.
but I had continued to do it because I felt others expected me to.
Right.
And that was one thing that I finally, with your help, we came to the decision that that was something we were going to take off of our plate.
Yeah.
We love getting together with people. We love getting updates from people. But that was one thing that really added stress and took away from our peace at the holidays.
Yeah. So much of that, though, is available during the year through social media. We do so much electronic communication that the yearly letter, physical letter, just doesn't convey as much new information as it used to. And the picture is, well, you can take a picture and post it, can't you?
Well,
and
when we had started with Christmas cards, social media wasn't a part of our life 30 years ago. And so there was a reason to use Christmas cards to update people of what had happened over the course of the year. But now that we have social media and email and text and phone and direct message, that is one area where you and I have said no to. Mm-hmm. We don't fault anybody else who does it. We love receiving your cards, but it's a matter, I think, of assessing, why are we doing it? Are we trying to meet someone else's expectation? And does it bring us joy? And when you say yes to something like that, what do you have to say no to?
Yes. And that's a huge part of managing holiday expectations, isn't it?
It is.
This idea of being able, allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to say no. Which, whether you realize that you say no or not, you do for just the reason you mentioned. If you say no, if you say yes to one thing, you are implicitly saying no to something else. Yes. You just may not know what it is.
Exactly. You know, there was a time when our family went through a very difficult season. Yeah. And our time was consumed with doctor's appointments and chemotherapy and de-germing the home. There were so many other demands that when the Christmas holidays came upon us, there was very little time or energy left over a span of a couple of years to devote to the holidays. And so I remember that was a time when we kind of sat the family down and said, here's what's important about the holidays, but we know that there are certain things that are important to you, or it would not feel like the holidays. For some people, it might be putting lights on the outside of your house so that every time you drive up, you see those lights. For other people, it's having certain foods at a meal. For others, it's Christmas Eve traditions. So we sat the family down and talked about limited resources, limited time, limited energy, and solicited their input about what were the most important things in order for the holidays to meet their expectations, while sharing that we were going to have to scale back in many other areas. And it's interesting because we've continued to scale back because we realized we had gotten caught up in the hoopla and we were not getting to enjoy the family and the reason for the season. So I'm so glad that we've continued with some of those. One of the things that we did was that particular year, that was our most stressful year, a friend was in town and she said, how can I help you? Can I cook for you and put things in the freezer? Can I do your laundry? And in tears, I said, could you help me decorate for Christmas? It was October. It was October. I had never before ever decorated before Thanksgiving, but I said to her, I need help because if we do not do this now, it will not happen. I knew our schedule. I knew the demands on our time and energy. And she helped me. We pulled in the totes from the garage. We decorated with the things that were most important for our family. I did away with my crystal tree that year, and there were some decorations that stayed in the totes, but we put up the ones that were most important to each family member, and it was done. And it also had the benefit to me that I like putting up the Christmas decorations, but in all transparency, I hate putting them away. And so when we put them up the 1st of December and then we take them down the 26th of December, I felt like it was such a short period. I was doing a lot of work. I was cheated. So that year I got to enjoy.
And I recall that was a good visit with your friend.
It was great. It was great.
You'll remember it forever.
And we both had the same willow crush.
Oh, yes.
And we love putting that crush up. That's my favorite decoration. But every year I struggled trying to figure out how these silly little animals and angels and shepherds fit back in their container. And she had a system, and she taught me her system, and it's been easier ever since. That was a bonus.
An unexpected Christmas gift.
It was. It was.
Halloween gift.
And I take a picture of it every Christmas and send it to her and say, hi, Ken. Thank you enough for helping me that year with Christmas decorations.
And that was 19, 20 years ago, wasn't it?
And that was quite a while ago. Another thing that I think is really helpful is assessing people's expectations regarding the meal. Last episode, we talked about how we came to the conclusion that a traditional Thanksgiving dinner was just not what our family enjoyed. And so we went through a couple of years of flops. One year, do you remember the year?
Oh, the
when we
pasta maker.
We tried to make our own ravioli. And it was fun as a family activity.
Yeah, doing it once.
It did not turn out so well. And we've not repeated that because that did not bring us joy. We did get a few good laughs, but it took us a few years to figure out, what does the family really enjoy? What would they miss if we didn't have it? For our family, that's peanut butter pie for Thanksgiving. But by sitting down and realizing, wait a minute, they don't even enjoy this? They don't enjoy the turkey and the dressing?
Then why are we doing it?
Why are we spending all day creating something that they're going to eat and not enjoy for 30 minutes, and then I have to spend the next 2 hours cleaning? We're not against your traditions. I want you to hear me. If that is something you enjoy, and I have friends who love being in the kitchen, if that is something you enjoy, then keep doing it. I'm just saying that sometimes we can get so busy assuming we know what another's expectations are and trying to meet it, only to find out
it's not.
It's not. Friends, we've got more practical tips to share with you, but we are going to take a real quick 1-minute commercial break. But stick with us as Scott and I share some more practical tips for how to create a more peaceful holiday season. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective. I'm Dr. Michelle Bengtson, your host, and co-hosting with me today is my husband, Scott.
Hello, honey.
How are you?
All right.
So, would it be fair to say that one of the things that you enjoy about the holidays is some of the baked goods?
Oh, it would be fair to say. It would be absolutely true. No doubt about it.
Do you remember the year that we were talking about before the break where things were just so stressful?
Mhm.
We were dealing with doctor's appointments and chemotherapy,
Yes,
and
I do.
we just felt like there was not enough time for the most crucial things to get done before we even started considering all the holiday festivities.
Mhm.
You gave me a very wise suggestion that year
Mhm.
for assessing expectations and reducing the stress so that I could keep my peace. I argued with you about it that year,
Mhm.
but I realized it was such a good suggestion that I've continued it since. What was that? Do you remember?
Well, I know that when you were planning for Christmas before that, and when your mother was doing holidays before that, oh, she and you would make a dozen different kind of cookies
At least.
or more.
At least, yes.
But during that particular year, I think we skinnied it down and said each person can pick their favorite kind of cookie, and we would make a batch of those. And I think you ended up making 3 or 4 types of cookies.
Yes, that was interesting because our oldest was very wise and he decided to hear everybody else's favorite
And then
first because he had 2 favorites. And if someone said one of his favorites, he wanted to be sure to get the other favorite. But what it did was then allow each person the thing that they looked forward to.
Yes, yes.
And so we could meet those scaled back expectations rather than trying to make some imaginary guest happy by also including their favorite in the mix.
Yeah.
So we went from a dozen or a dozen and a half different types of cookies down to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And we've continued making those 3 or 4 favorites every year.
Yeah.
But it's reduced the stress while still being cognizant of ours and others' expectations.
And of filling the house with baked goods.
Yes, yes. So that you're not disappointed.
There you go.
My guys have sweet tooths. That year and every year since, we have also become much more conservative with respect to our time.
Yes.
The holidays are a great time to get together with those that you enjoy spending time with or those that you don't get to see very often. But I think it's important to recognize that, just like we were saying with other things, when you say yes to one event, you may end up then actually saying no to something else.
Yes.
Because there's a finite amount of time to prepare for the holidays and enjoy the holidays. And so we became much more conservative about what we would say yes to. We didn't say yes to every invite because we didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings by not showing up or not participating. But we realized that to be at our best and to maintain our peace, we needed to choose those activities that would create memories for us and that would infuse us with joy and not deplete us because we were always giving out trying to meet others' expectations. So one of our suggestions to you is that you might consider limiting engagements to those that are either most important or can be enjoyed as an entire family, or which will add to your joy quotient. How about with respect to gift giving? That can be a sticky topic, but it adds to the stress, both in terms of the amount of time that it takes to shop and buy and wrap and mail those gifts, but also in terms of the financial stress after the holidays are over. What suggestions might you have in terms of reducing the stress and maintaining our peace around gift giving?
Well, I recall as young marrieds and then as parents, young parents, parents of young children too, that we just didn't have a very good calibration of how to gift to another. I think we both assumed that quantity was the measure. I remember one time early in our marriage when we celebrated Christmas at my parents' house, and they finished with the gift giving in a short time. I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes or an hour. And 2 hours later, you and I were still giving gifts back and forth. And when my mom called us to lunch, we just didn't have that thing set in our mind for what a gift really is, and how you can show affection through gift giving without going way overboard. And I think that's a different call for each point of your adult life, before you're married, when you're newly married, when you have young children that become aware of Christmas, and then as they mature, adding some of the constraints around it to say, no, in fact, Christmas isn't a day when you get everything you could possibly ever want. It is a chance for us to show love to each other through gift giving.
And I think it's a chance for us to teach our children and our grandchildren that they're not the focus of the day,
right,
but God's gift to us in the form of Jesus as a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's the focus of the holiday.
Yes.
I know some families really take a cue, for example, from the wise men.
Mm-hmm.
The wise men came bearing gifts. So it's not that gifts are a bad thing, but some families have really chosen to limit their gift giving to 3 items.
I like that suggestion you got from that friend of yours.
Yes. So one of the things is a clothing item.
Mm-hmm. One of the 3.
One of the 3 gifts is a clothing item that
Mm-hmm.
someone needs. The second gift is a utilitarian gift, something that that person has really needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third gift is really something fun or highly desired.
Right.
And through that, we're meeting needs. We're taking care of celebrating through the gift giving and carefully choosing and preparing. And we're recognizing that it can be time of fun to ask for those things that we might not pay for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But by limiting the gifts, we limit the stress.
Mm-hmm.
We keep the focus on Christ as being the ultimate gift. And then we also limit the financial stress that comes in January.
I think also, like we talked about with social media, the changes in our world have worked for us in this way, because there was a time when gifts under the Christmas tree perhaps represented the majority of what new material goods were that showed up in the house over the year. But now with Amazon Prime and with the relative inexpensiveness of so many things, when you have the need, you fill the need. I mean, you're not going to wait till Christmas for new socks, right?
Right.
Just
right.
open your laptop, a few clicks, and they're on the way.
Right.
So then Christmas becomes something not just to provide for the next year's worth of needs,
yes,
but for something that's an unusual need or a unique need, and in a way that represents God's love to us.
One other suggestion that I have about point number 2, assessing and reducing our expectations, is understanding how we put expectations on others.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we have visions in our mind of how someone will respond when we give them what we thought was the most carefully selected gift, to how they might respond to the holiday meal. We need to let go of the expectation for how they're going to respond. We can control our behavior, but we have no control over that other person. And what I have found is that if I will release my expectations for how they're going to react or how the day is going to go, I'm able to stay in peace, because I'm not frustrated that I didn't get what I wanted in terms of their response.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, it's not fair to the other person, because they can't see inside my head. You didn't know what would delight my heart in terms of how to respond when I gave you a gift.
Yeah, right.
And so if I can release expectations, that's actually a gift to you and to the others around me
And
as
to
well.
yourself.
Yes.
And that's one of those things that goes right back to remembering the source of our peace.
Yes.
We
Yes.
talked last time about how it can be useful just to pause and spend a few seconds before a big event, a meal or a get-together or a Christmas morning, to stop and to remember who gave us peace to start with, and to be able to say, okay, I'm walking into this, Lord. I don't know how Uncle Joe or Aunt Sally is going to respond or what's going to come up, but you have this in your hands.
Love that. Friends, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, but I want you to stick with us as we wrap up part 2 of ways to create a more peaceful holiday season. We've got another important suggestion for you. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective. Today we're talking about ways to create a more peaceful holiday season. We've talked about remembering who our source of peace is. We've talked about assessing and reducing our expectations. And the third thing that we want to talk about real quickly is choosing your focus. Whether we are talking about everyday life or the holidays in particular, we more easily fall prey to worry, fear, and anxiety and lose our peace when we take our eyes off God and put them on our circumstances. You know, during the holidays, it becomes tempting to dispense with some of our usual routines.
It sure does.
Our morning quiet time, our before work exercise,
right.
our diet.
Yes, that too.
You know, but I think it's important to choose our focus and to keep some of those normal, natural daily routines that will actually decrease our stress, give us extra strength and energy to see through. So focus on our healthy routines, things like maintaining that exercise routine, maintaining our daily devotional, limiting the change in our diet. But I also think that something that can be real helpful to maintain our peace is taking a few minutes at the end of the day. I've talked to a lot of people over the course of my career, and most people are pretty good about an early morning routine, but less so in the evening. And I would suggest, if you want to keep your peace at the end of the day, review your calendar and prepare for the next day or two. List those things that still need to get done in the future so that you don't forget them. Consider time in God's Word with an Advent reading or some other devotional at the end of the day. And pray, thanking God for what He enabled you to get done that day and giving Him all the concerns for tomorrow so that you can go to sleep without that burden and receive sweet, peaceful sleep.
Yes. I think it helps too during those times when you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, tomorrow, I got to do this, and this. Well, if you've given those to the Lord before you go to sleep, you have the opportunity then when the dark night comes and you're beginning to stress about them, to say, I've given those over to the Lord. I can't take them back. He's got them, and He's got the whole situation. I'm going to finish tonight's sleep, worry about those in the morning when I wake up.
Because Scripture says He will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is stayed on Thee.
Great
so
verse.
If we will keep our focus on God, that allows Him to keep us in perfect peace. Let's give a couple suggestions about limiting technology during the holidays.
Yes. Yeah, that's well, all during the year, I think that we are tempted to just kind of mindlessly scroll through our Twitter feed or our Facebook wall or our email because we always want to know just the latest thing that's happening. But that becomes especially onerous or especially distracting during the holiday season because we have so many other things that call on our time.
Yeah. We don't realize how much time we really do spend on technology.
Even when we think of it as useful or something that we need to do to finish this task or the other task, we still kind of slip into this mode of over-researching or
But
something
like we
like
were
that.
talking about earlier, when we say yes to the technology,
We're
we are saying no to something else that
Yes.
perhaps is more important use of our time.
Mhm.
Another thing that I want to mention in terms of choosing our focus is the idea of limiting the negativity.
Oh, so important.
That will sacrifice our peace more than anything else when we allow ourselves to go down those negative trails. And you know, when we think about the idea of limiting technology, that in many ways does limit some of the negativity, whether it's turning off the nightly news or not scrolling through our feed and responding to every crisis that we see come across, and allows us more time to spend with family members doing things like decorating cookies, putting together a holiday puzzle, or reading an Advent devotion.
And I think another one of those ideas that goes with limiting the negativity is being aware of the words that we speak over ourselves, over the situation, or over others.
Yes.
Even to the point of going, oh my goodness, I've got to finish this, this, and this before we go do that, that, and that. Everybody knows, or every adult knows, that what the schedule is, what the tasks are, more or less. So declaring that over yourself and your family just enhances the negativity. Yet we've been given the command to be aware of our words.
Yes. Another way to choose our focus, which I think heightens our peace and reduces worry, fear, and anxiety, is to remember that Scripture tells us, do to others as you would like them to do to you. And I can think of so many people during this holiday season who are alone, who are grieving, who are without their family members, who are ill, and who just need some encouragement. And sometimes we can fall prey to feeling a little down during the holiday season. Things aren't going quite the way we want, or we're missing family members. And one way to combat that is to actually look beyond our own situation, our own circumstances, and do for someone else. Not only will that encourage them, but it will encourage our hearts as well.
Who was the psychologist that said the best way to combat depression is to cross the railroad tracks and to do something for somebody on the other side?
Yes, Carl Menninger was a famous psychiatrist who suggested that, because he knew that when we get outside of ourselves and do for others, it not only helps them, but it will cheer us up as well. So you might choose as a family a way that you can reach out to someone else. Have someone over for a holiday meal that you know is alone, or send a card to someone who's not feeling well, or stop by when you've picked up that bouquet of flowers for your own table, stop by and pick up another bouquet for someone who isn't feeling well and could use a little bit of encouragement. You know, God's word shows us how important it is to choose our focus. When Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, don't worry about tomorrow. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need. Thank him for all he has done. And then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. So he's giving us the formula right now to pray about what's concerning us and to thank him in advance. And in exchange, he gives us
peace.
His peace. Friends, it's been our delight to share with you ways to create a more peaceful holiday. Until next time, this is Dr. Michelle Bengtson with your hope-filled perspective. May you have a hope-filled, peace-filled week.